Welcome to another edition of the FarmCast presented by 21st Century Equipment. My name is Mike Wemhoff. I'm here with Troy Randall, one of our precision ag managers. Thanks for joining me again, Troy.
Yep.
Today we're going to talk about AutoPath and Boundary, something that is finally available for everybody. So what is it, Troy? Let's start at square one.
So it's pretty much a new version of AutoPath, which, to take a step back, AutoPath came out a couple of years ago. So what it allows us to do is pretty much map and then use that source pass throughout the entire season. How the system started out is we pretty much put a receiver on an implement, whether it be a strip till, planter, preferably planter, and then what that does is pretty much map out row by row exactly where that implement went through the field. So whether it be a pull type or even like a 3-point mount, we're pretty much mapping right where that crop was planted row by row, pass by pass. So then we pretty much take that information, we load it up to Op Center, and then it gives us what I like to call is pretty much, like we've had a variety locator for years, and that pretty much gave us one giant map for the entire field for our varieties. This almost does the exact same thing except for guidance lines. So it gives us one giant map for the entire field for all our guidance lines, which makes it that much easier from a logistical standpoint when we're out in the field. So we don't have to swap between our end row lines, our main lines, this line over here, this curve track. It just gives us one nice whole map for pretty much everywhere that source pass operation went, whether it be strip till, planter, whatever that source pass is, and that allows us to pretty much guide the next pass we're doing right now off that source pass. We see around here we do some cultivation, so it could be cultivator, it could be a sprayer, but the biggest benefit is we see is harvest time. We can take that source pass from the corn planter, send it to the combine, so that way when the combines go out there, you don't have to count rows anymore. So that's always been a big thing people have had to do. So counting rows is kind of a thing of the past because it's going to generate and put you exactly where you need to, whether you're plant 24, pick 12, and then we kind of can also do some mix match things such as plant 16. If you pick 12, it works out for that too. We can do 16 on 16, but usually when we kind of match up, that works really good. But then also 24 following two 12-row passes, that does very good as well. When we do it that way too, so it's kind of a good story I have. When that first came out, I had quite a few guys test that throughout the years, and one guy was kind of skeptical on it because he was always the lead combine when it came to harvest. They ran 3 combines. He had AutoPath loaded up, and he was going to open a new land, and he's pretty good at counting rows. So he was counting rows. The AutoPath said he was 30 inches off. Like, oh, I'm right. Well, lo and behold, AutoPath was right. He was wrong. So when he got to the end of when he pretty much got to the end of the land, he had one row of shame because when he counted, he was off. So that was kind of one good win. So like I said, if you let it do its thing, it will put you exactly where you need to be throughout the entire field, whether it be tillage pass, out there cultivating, the sprayer, harvest pass, pretty much anything after that source pass, we can utilize it throughout the entire season. So that is what we refer to as AutoPath From Rows. So now what we came out with is called AutoPath From Boundary. So the big thing with AutoPath From Rows is you pretty much always had to have that source operation. You had to have that implement receiver, on that planter, on that toolbar, on that strip till bar, so we could use it after the fact. Now AutoPath From Boundary pretty much removes that requirement. So the only thing we really need is a good high quality boundary. So we pretty much take that good high quality boundary, we define our headland, so how many end row passes you're going to have, you define the width of that, and then when we have that nice high quality boundary, it pretty much allows us to generate within that entire boundary, how do we want to doing our operation in that field, whether it be a constant heading, we can align to boundary. One feature of that is called the perfect first pass. So if you choose that, it's going to pretty much make, depending on the longest side of the boundary, it's going to make that first pass pretty much perfect. So it's going to have a spot where you kind of have to double back and go in and fill a couple feet. So that's one benefit of that. Or we can also choose from a previous guidance line as well. So that's kind of a rough overview of AutoPath From Boundaries right there.
Good, thank you. Yeah, and I know you talked about multiple machines in the field. Customer story that I have, somebody who's going to AutoPath this year is really looking forward to that in corn harvest because they got multiple combines in the field. Like you said, they don't have to count rows anymore. They know exactly how many passes they need to skip.
Yep.
And that just guides them right there. And then along with that, your coin phrase is plan,
yep.
right? You can plan your path through the field
yep.
with however X number of machines that you have, one to many
yep.
machines that you have. So makes that very seamless for the operators when they go into the field, and they don't have to think about that in the cab any longer,
yep.
which is great.
Yeah, and with that planning, the nice thing is too, we have a lot more flexibility when it comes to that too, because AutoPath From Rows, we pretty much had to record it from the implement, send it to Op Center, then send it back out. The nice thing about AutoPath and boundaries, we can set it up in the machine or in Op Center beforehand. So we can do the exact same setup in Op Center, and we can send it out to multiple machines, or if we have one machine kind of going around to new fields and they have a good boundary, they can set it up on the display too. So it's very flexible from that standpoint, so it gives us a lot more flexibility than just being real rigid like AutoPath From Row was in the past. So
So you had mentioned high quality boundaries. What is a high quality boundary? What do they need for AutoPath?
So preferably with a high quality boundary, we want it driven and with either SF3, SFRTK, or radio-based RTK out in the field, driven with a machine around the actual field. So that's what we usually refer to as a high quality boundary, not generated off another operation, not hand drawn, not just free drawn in Op Center or from an unknown source. That's what we refer to as a high quality boundary anymore. So having that good high quality boundary that way, because how it generates is it pretty much generates your en-row pass off the boundary. So when we want those en-row passes, you want those to be exactly where you want the machine to go. So having a good quality boundary for it to generate off is very key for that. So
absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to how we can transition into good high quality boundaries that allow that work to be done in the John Deere Operations Center ahead of time. You can plan the operation effectively and roll right when you get to the field.
Yep. So, and the nice thing about AutoPath from boundaries, or even all of AutoPath now, it's very flexible. So there's different situations when we can use it in different operations. So take, for instance, a small grain operation. They might just use AutoPath from boundaries throughout the entire season because they can use it when they go seed in the fall or in the spring. Then they can use it when they go apply with a sprayer. Then they can use it for harvest too. So they can just use, because their rows are a lot shorter, so they can have a little more flexibility with that. So they can just use that AutoPath and boundaries for the entire season, where as a row crop farmer, maybe on like 30-inch rows for corn like we have around here, we can use AutoPath from boundaries. Say we're strip tilling, we could make an AutoPath from boundaries for the strip tiller, and then maybe we're recording AutoPath from rows off that, maybe not. We can use that same AutoPath from boundaries. You can put that in the planter, but then maybe we have an implement receiver on that planter. So then from there, we have that good source pass to operations. We can take that AutoPath from rows. We can use that in the sprayer. We can use that in the combine too. Or if they're willing to, we could even just use that same AutoPath from boundary across the entire row crop operation too. So it just gives us more flexibility of what we're doing, but especially for row crop guys, I know a lot of them like to be pretty nats on when it comes to going back in with a cultivator, with a sprayer, with a combine. So having that source pass for AutoPath from rows is very beneficial, but it gives them a lot more, pretty much gives them the same thing they're used to after the planter beforehand. So when it comes to maybe this basic VT tillage work in the spring and then strip till too, that's where it's going to be cool to see it, because unfortunately it came out right now halfway through the year. So it's a new feature with software 24.1, which just came out a few weeks ago too. So we actually did kind of give it a preview of it this spring at our Expo. So shameless plug.
Come to the Expo.
Yeah.
February 26th and 27th of 2025, we will have even more information to share about this topic and many.
Yep, and especially all the new stuff that's going to come out between now and then. So, but we kind of shared it back at our Expo then, but it wasn't quite out yet. So, which is unfortunate because that means we really couldn't use it this spring through this year, but we can use it right now. So I've got a few guys on our team have actually used it, sent it out, and got customers set up with wheat harvest with it. And they like it pretty good. So it's just kind of playing around with it, seeing how they can utilize it in their operations. But that would be a kind of small grains operation. So we'll kind of continue to use it throughout this season, see where we can use it, how customers can use it, things like that. So, but as of right now, it will be a very nice tool to use when it comes to better planning the field operations and planning the guidance as a whole for the entire field. So, and the big thing it kind of revolves around is autonomy. So this is kind of how we're moving towards autonomy, because we're pretty much planning out that entire field pass beforehand. So having all that set up beforehand is critical for that operation. So this is just this is almost kind of what a foundational building blocks of what autonomy is built off, is AutoPath and boundaries. So
I almost think of it like kind of gaming how you're going to run through the field, so you don't end up with that shameless row at the end,
exactly,
right?
So.
And that in June or July versus when you're in the field in October, November, picking corn. So it's very valuable for all of our customers.
Yeah, I think one thing I saw in some of the literature, and of course this probably came from back east, and that they have a lot more odd shaped fields back there with, that follow the contours of the land a lot better too. But I think one situations was the customer went from about 110 so passes through the field down to like 86. So just those few, optimizing the right angle through the field made it that much more efficient, and that much less backtracking and filling in small passes here and there. So,
and you think of the equipment cost savings per hour, and then also the fuel savings per hour, that machine doesn't have to do that work, which is great.
Because that's one thing I kind of even learned this spring, especially when we've been doing a lot of our training fields and doing our demos, things like that. Me personally, I'm very methodical about things, and I like to plan things out the best I can so I can do as much as I can with as very few, I guess, inputs or as efficient as I can. So that's always one thing I like to think about too, especially when you're planning a field. Like, you always want to make sure you end up on the right side of the field when you're done, so that way you don't have to backtrack or waste time going between the far end of the field back to this end, things like that. So this is just kind of one more tool that might help us better plan out and be more efficient when it comes to doing not just planning, but pretty much any operation within that field. So make sure we're always kind of, when we end that pass, we might be right where we need to end, right up next to the truck or the edge of the field, so we don't have to waste 10, 20 minutes transporting, idling around, things like that. Just things to think about that kind of add up when you start to think about them.
So maybe one question that you might have is, what about those odd shaped boundaries? You talked about the boundaries out east that are contour to the land, or in our area, you might have a watering hole in the middle, or a light pole, or whatever it may be in the middle. Does AutoPath work with that?
Yep. So as long as you have some type of an interior boundary around it, so if you have that impassable interior boundary where you do not want to drive through that, it'll actually, when you set up AutoPath from boundaries, you can define that interior boundary. Then if you make a headland around it, it'll do the exact same thing on that interior boundary that it does on the exterior boundary. So it'll put some headland passes around that to mitigate having to go through that object, if that's what you want to do. Or if it's impassable, you can go right through it too. So it works very, very similar to kind of what we have right now. So,
well, we have a group of 18 precision ag consultants across 21st Century in all of our locations. So this is a great opportunity to engage one of our consultants, or Troy or myself, and really figure out how this can work in your operation, being it's new, and really, again, look for more information from us in the meantime. Also, we will cover this as an in-depth topic at our High Plains Ag Expo on February 26th and 27th in Greeley. So thank you again for joining us, Troy, and thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next edition of the FarmCast.